If you enjoyed this chilling story, don't forget to subscribe to. I don't usually tell people this story. Not because I'm afraid they won't believe me, though, to be honest, I know most wouldn't, but because talking about it brings back the exact same dread I felt that day. I can feel it crawling up my spine even now. It was the summer of 2002. I was 16, spending a week at a summer camp in the countryside of Sao Paulo, not far from São Roque. It wasn't my first time there. In fact, it was my third. I went with my two best friends, Janaina and Jessica. We'd grown up together, and that year was special because it was the last time we could attend before aging out. The camp was surrounded by trees, fields, and a long, narrow lake that wrapped around one side of the property. We'd made a lot of memories there. The cabins were rustic but comfortable. There was a mess hall, a soccer field, a pool, and a tiny chapel at the edge of the woods. But there were also areas we were told not to explore, paths that went beyond the designated trails, the kind of off-limits zones that, naturally, only made us more curious. One afternoon, a few days into camp, we found ourselves bored. Most of the other campers were napping, or off doing activities we didn't care about. So the three of us decided to finally check out one of the forbidden trails. There was one in particular we remembered from the previous year. It started near the back of the property and led into the forest. We had seen it before, roped off with a wooden sign nailed to a tree that simply said, "Do not enter." No explanation. That day, the rope was gone. It was hot, mid-January, high summer in Brazil. The air buzzed with the sound of insects, and the sun filtered through the dense canopy of the trees. As we walked, we joked around, laughed too loud, kicked at stones. It didn't feel dangerous at first, just forgotten. About 15 minutes in, we came to a clearing. I don't know how else to say this. The forest just opened up, like something had forced the trees to give way to a perfectly circular space. And in the center of that space was the playground. It looked old but well kept. There was a metal seesaw, a swing set with rusted chains, and one of those rope climbing nets that led to a small wooden platform. The colors were faded, the kind of chipped paint that hinted at decades of sun and rain. But it didn't look like something that had been abandoned for decades. There were no fallen branches, no overgrowth swallowing it. It was just sitting there, waiting. We stood there for a while, not speaking. I think we all felt something shift the moment we saw it. But eventually, Janaina broke the silence and said something like, "Well, we came this far. Might as well take a look." So we did. Jessica climbed onto the swing. I remember the creaking sound of the chain, how unnatural it felt against the quiet of the woods. Janaina went up the rope net. I walked around the perimeter, feeling strangely like we were trespassing, like we weren't supposed to be seen here. Then we heard it. Footsteps. Slow, measured, coming from the trees. 2 steps. Then silence. 2 more. Then nothing. We froze. Janaina was still up on the platform, and she was the first to speak. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Jessica nodded. "It's probably another camper, or a counselor maybe." But none of us believed that. It didn't sound like someone walking toward us. It sounded like someone watching us, pacing. The sound came again. 2 steps. A pause. 2 more. Always just far enough that we couldn't see anything beyond the thick curtain of trees. But it was close. And it was circling. We didn't run right away. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. Or denial. We just stood there listening. I took a picture with the disposable camera I'd brought. I don't even know why. Reflex, I guess. The camera clicked loudly in the silence, and I think that was what finally broke the spell. We turned around and left the way we came, walking fast, but not quite running. But instead of heading straight back to camp, we noticed another trail branching off the main one. It looked even less used. Narrower. The kind of path animals make by walking the same route over and over. And for some reason, we followed it. We should have gone back. We should have. After maybe 10 minutes of walking, we stumbled onto another clearing. This one didn't look like it had any purpose. It was just a stretch of flattened dirt. But there were these black trash bags. 5 or 6 of them, piled near a tree, half covered by leaves. The way they were arranged was too neat, like someone had placed them there deliberately. It felt wrong, like they were hiding something. To the right of the bags, deeper into the clearing, we saw 3 dome-shaped structures, large metal cages, each about the size of a small car. The metal bars were thick and rusted, with curved tops and no visible doors. They looked like animal enclosures, old ones. One of them was partially collapsed. None of us said a word. I took a step closer to the cages, trying to make sense of them. I was staring at the middle one, when something told me to look up, and that's when I saw him. In the tree, maybe 5 meters off the ground, crouched on a thick branch, was a man. He was barefoot, wearing jeans and a red hoodie. The hood was up, but I could still see most of his face. He was smiling, wide and unnatural, like he knew something we didn't, like he was enjoying the moment. But he wasn't moving, not a twitch, just crouched there like some kind of animal. I couldn't breathe. I blinked and he was gone. No sound, no branch movement, just gone. I turned and told Janaina and Jessica we needed to leave. I didn't explain why. I couldn't find the words, but they saw my face, and they didn't argue. We didn't go back the way we came. There was another fork, a trail barely visible, leading back toward the direction of the lake. We followed it, hoping it would eventually loop back toward camp. But the deeper we went, the stranger it got. The air felt thick, heavy, like something was pressing down on us. The trees looked darker, and the trail started to disappear beneath our feet. There was no wind, no birdsong, just the sound of our breathing and the crunch of dried leaves. Then we heard something else. Laughter. Children's laughter. Faint, distant, but unmistakable. We stopped in our tracks. There was no way that sound was coming from the camp. We were too far out, and it didn't sound playful. It sounded wrong, repetitive, echoed, like it was coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. And then it happened again, closer this time. Like something trying to sound like children laughing. But it didn't quite get it right. We didn't talk. We didn't argue. We turned and ran. Branches slapped at our faces. Roots threatened to trip us with every step. But we didn't care. We just ran. We eventually saw the lake in the distance, glittering between the trees, and used it as a landmark to get back. When we reached the shoreline, we collapsed in the grass, completely breathless. We didn't speak on the walk back to the main campgrounds. Not even once. Later that night, while everyone else was at the bonfire, I sat on the edge of my bunk, trying to write about what I'd seen. But I couldn't. My hands were shaking. I didn't tell Janaina or Jessica about the man in the tree until weeks later. We were back home by then. When I did, they both went silent. Janaina admitted that she had seen the black bags too, and felt something was inside them. Jessica confessed she'd been hearing the laughter long before I mentioned it. She just didn't want to say anything at the time. We never spoke about it again after that. But sometimes I think about that playground, the cages, the laughter that came from nowhere, and that man. I think about what he was waiting for, or watching, or protecting, because one thing is clear to me now. We weren't supposed to be there. Something lives beyond the lake, and it never left. If you enjoyed this chilling story, don't forget to subscribe to Beyond. I've lived my whole life in a small town that barely shows up on maps. The kind of place where everyone knows each other's name and nothing ever really happens until it does. It was a Friday, and everyone at school was restless. No one cared about the lectures or assignments. You could feel it in the air, that buzzing anticipation for freedom. When the final bell rang, it was like someone had opened the floodgates. Kids pouring out of classrooms, shouting, laughing, running. Friday had arrived, and with it, the promise of escape. That night, we were bored out of our minds. In a town like ours, there's only so much you can do before you start circling the same old places. The diner, the gas station parking lot, someone's basement. Eventually, my friends and I just wanted something different. Something to shake off that sleepy, small-town vibe. That's when someone, can't remember who, suggested we head toward the south end of the lake. There's a trail there that cuts through the woods. Nobody ever really goes out that way. Not because of any stories or legends, but because people just don't. Even as kids, we avoided it without ever talking about why. That quiet kind of avoidance that feels inherited. Still, that night, we were desperate for anything to break the monotony. So we borrowed Jason's older brother's car and made our way out there, laughing, talking, playing music way too loud. The sky was still streaked with pink and purple from the sunset as we parked at the head of the trail. From there, we continued on foot. The air was warm, and there was a light breeze brushing against our faces, a reminder that summer was creeping in. The trail twisted in and out of the forest. Sometimes it felt like it was swallowing us whole, the trees growing thicker and darker the further we went. Eventually, we came to a bridge, newer, solid, with clean wood planks and guardrails. We stood there for a while, chucking rocks into the water, talking about school, people, plans for the summer. It was calm, peaceful even. For a second, I almost forgot we were out in a part of town that everyone seemed to pretend didn't exist. Then someone, probably Matt, noticed a small dock off to the side. Not the modern kind you'd expect to see. This one was old, real old. The wood was gray and splintered. The nails looked like rusted needles, holding the planks together by sheer will. Next to it, there was this gnarled tree, with twisted branches that stretched out and dipped low over the water. Some of the limbs nearly touched the dock itself, like they were reaching for it. There was something about that scene that made us all go quiet. We wandered down to the dock, drawn by that kind of silent dare no one speaks aloud. The kind that says, if you're scared, just say so. But no one did. One by one, we stepped onto the creaking boards. They held, but just barely. We stood at the edge, staring down into the still, dark water. That's when we noticed the bubbles. Just a few at first. Small, lazy ones. Nothing unusual. Maybe a frog. Maybe some trapped air from a fish or something. But then more came. Bigger. Closer together. like something was rising beneath the surface, slowly. We leaned in, curiosity overriding caution. The surface rippled gently, and the air grew colder without warning. I didn't even notice it at first, but my arms were covered in goosebumps. Then I saw it, just for a second. Something broke the surface. It had the shape of a person, or what used to be one. Its skin clung tightly to bone, pale and swollen in places. And the eyes, those damn eyes, bulged from its face like they'd been forced out. Lifeless, wide, staring. My brain didn't even register the moment we all turned and ran. It was pure instinct. We bolted into the woods, crashing through branches, stumbling over roots. I could hear someone yelling behind me, or maybe it was me. I don't know. All I remember is running. The kind of run where your legs move faster than your thoughts. We didn't stop until we saw the car. We flung the doors open, climbed in, panting wide-eyed. There was this nervous laughter, the kind that comes when you've been scared but think it's over. We started joking, making fun of how fast each other had run, how Matt tripped twice. For a second, it felt like maybe we'd imagined the whole thing, just a creepy shape in the water, our minds playing tricks on us. And then a rock came through the window. It shattered the glass beside Jason. Not a pebble, not a handful of gravel, a full-sized rock, slick with water and covered in moss, landed on the floor between the seats. None of us spoke. No one had time to. Jason slammed his foot on the gas, and we tore out of there like our lives depended on it. I sat in the back seat, barely breathing, listening to the wind rush through the broken window. I couldn't stop staring at the rock. It was still damp, fresh, like something, had just pulled it from the bottom of the lake. We didn't go back. Not the next day. Not the next week. Not ever. And none of us really talked about it afterward. But I still dream about those eyes sometimes. Wide, empty, watching from beneath the surface. And every now and then, when I pass by the lake, I swear I see bubbles. If you enjoyed this chilling story, don't forget to subscribe to be. I wasn't even born when this happened, but the way my mom tells it, how her voice still shakes, how she avoids certain details unless I really press, I know it was real. This wasn't one of those family legends people exaggerate over time. No, this stayed the same every time I heard it, no matter how many years passed. It's something that left a mark so deep on my family. It's like I lived it too. It happened in the late 90s, during a summer trip to Rio de Janeiro. My mom was pregnant with me at the time, and they decided to take a vacation. Just her, my dad, and my two older sisters, Julia and Luisa. It was supposed to be one of those beautiful, unforgettable family holidays, and it was just not in the way they'd hoped. They stayed at a beachfront hotel that had these interconnected rooms. My parents slept in one room, while my sister shared the other, with a door in between that they kept unlocked at night. During the day, everything felt normal. Sunshine, beach trips, laughter, that kind of easy peace you only get on vacation. But something changed during the last few nights. The kind of change you don't notice right away, until it's too late. My mom remembers the air shifting, not just the weather, but the feeling inside the hotel itself. The corridors started to feel colder, quieter, like something was watching. She brushed it off, of course. Vacation logic, hormones, fatigue. But she admits now, something about that hotel didn't feel right. Then there was that one night, the one they never forgot. It started subtly. Julia, the oldest, began twitching in her sleep, mumbling. Nothing too strange at first, but then she started crying. Soft, muffled sobs that broke through the thin walls between the rooms. My mom stirred a little, but didn't get up. She figured maybe it was just a bad dream. Meanwhile, in the next room, Lisa couldn't sleep at all. She told me years later that she'd never felt anything like it. The air felt thick, like it was pressing down on her chest. There was a presence in that room with her, something she couldn't see, but could feel. Heavy, cold, watching. The silence was so absolute. She could hear her own heart beating. She said it felt like something, or someone, was standing at the foot of her bed. But every time she opened her eyes, there was nothing there. She thought about waking Julia, but didn't want to scare her. Instead, she stared at the ceiling, paralyzed by this growing dread, until she finally found the courage to get up. It was just after 4 a.m. when she crept across the room and knocked softly on the door to my parents' side. No answer. She knocked again, louder. Still nothing. She panicked a little, thinking maybe something was wrong with them too. So she called out, whispering at first, then louder. Finally, she heard my mom's groggy voice from the other side. The door cracked open. That's when it happened. My mom didn't process it immediately. She was still half asleep, rubbing her eyes, leaning against the door. Louisa stepped into the room and asked if she could sleep with them. Said she didn't feel well. But then my mom saw something. Behind Louisa, standing in the dark hallway between the two rooms. A woman. Old, wrinkled, pale. Her face was twisted, not in anger, but in this look of frozen fear, like she'd seen something that had never let her rest. And in her arms, she was holding something. A bundle of towels, just stacked neatly, like a maid doing her rounds. But she didn't move like a maid. She didn't look like someone who still belonged in this world. My mom gasped, a small, sharp sound that escaped before she could stop it. Just a whispered, instinctual cry. That startled Louisa, who turned back quickly. But the woman was already gone, vanished into the bathroom without a sound, like she'd never been there at all. Except she had. My mom pulled Louisa in and slammed the door behind her, heart racing. She held her close, trying to calm down enough to think, to speak. She hadn't even said a word, yet when Julia burst through the inner door between the rooms, crying, saying she'd had a nightmare. She said there was an old woman in it, chasing Louisa, reaching for her. My parents just looked at each other. No one said anything for a moment. Then they all sat together on the bed. My dad still trying to shake off sleep. My sisters pale and trembling. And they prayed. Just sat there in that too small bed, huddled under the covers, repeating the same protection prayers over and over, clinging to each other like it was the only thing holding them in this world. They didn't go back to sleep. My mom told me that part so many times. How they waited for morning, watching the window as the sky slowly changed from black to gray. How the light never seemed to reach that bathroom door. The next day, my mom went down to the lobby and tried to bring it up casually with the woman at the front desk. She asked if anyone else had ever seen anything unusual. The receptionist just smiled politely and said no. But her eyes said something different. My mom swears there was a flicker there. Recognition. Hesitation. No one ever mentioned it again. They checked out 2 days early. Didn't care about the money. Just wanted to go home. Over the years, my mom told me that she believes the old woman wasn't malicious. Not evil exactly. Just stuck. Like she didn't know she was gone. Maybe she'd worked there her whole life. Maybe she died in that very hallway, clutching the same towels she used to carry every day. Maybe she had nowhere else to go. But even if she wasn't trying to hurt anyone, that didn't make her any less terrifying. The fear wasn't in what she did. It was in how real she was. How solid, how present, and how quickly she vanished. My mom always ends a story the same way. She says, some things don't leave. Not because they're evil, just because they can't. And even though I wasn't there, I've seen that expression on her face when she talks about it. I've felt the air shift when she describes that woman. I've imagined her standing in that dim hallway, arms full of towels, eyes wide and empty, stuck somewhere between memory and nightmare. And I believe her, because there's fear that fades with time. And then there's the kind that sticks to your bones, even before you're born. If you enjoyed this chilling story, don't forget to subscribe to Beyond Fear and hit the bell icon so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Here, you'll find more real stories filled with mystery, psychological horror, and the supernatural every week. Before you go, make sure to check out the 2 videos that just popped up in the end screen. I promise, they'll leave you with goosebumps. See you next time, if you dare.